Hello, everybody, and welcome to Collision. Welcome to the panel. I'm Stephanie Hughes, the FinTech and crypto reporter at Financial Post, and I am so stoked to be having this conversation about decentralized finance and its innovations and what it really brings to the open digital economy and how quickly it can get us there. This conversation comes at a very interesting time when we see a lot of global uncertainty and we come on the heels of a cryptocurrency market rout that for some people has put this DeFi dream and the promises into question here. So interesting times, and I can't think of a better gang to guide us through the conversation here. So let me introduce you to the panelists. We've got Alex Tapscott, who is the co-author of Blockchain Revolution. He is an entrepreneur, a best-selling author, and an investor focused on the impact of emerging technologies such as cryptocurrencies and blockchain, and how it impacts business, government, and society. His next book, Digital Asset Revolution, is out in June 2022, so pick up a copy. And then we have Elea Sinelnikova, who is the founder and CEO of CryptoChicks and Metis. Elea has an extensive background in developing enterprise software solutions for government and law enforcement industries, and she holds a master's degree in computer science, specializes in blockchain, cybersecurity, full-stack programming. Then we also have Bryan Talebi, who is the CEO and co-founder of Ahura AI. Before that, he has spent years in leadership, sales, and business development roles with many different tech companies and at NASA. And today he is focused on how emerging technologies can really help us get access to education, personalized education, so that everybody can afford some personalized education there. So, to get us started there, I want to start on a more optimistic note about what DeFi really brings to this open global economy. And Alex, I want to start with you. When we think about the promises here that decentralized finance brings, what makes you most excited about the potential here?
I think the potential of DeFi is profound. And the opportunity is basically to replace the entire existing financial system or infrastructure with software. And this is something that's happened in lots of other industries, but the financial industry has been relatively untouched by the disruptive potential of technology. And part of that is the limitation of the internet up until blockchain and crypto came along, because the internet is fundamentally an information medium. It's a great tool for communicating and for publishing information, but it's not so good as a tool for moving and storing assets, because when you send something using the internet, you can send the same version to someone else. So with blockchain, we have a medium that creates scarcity in digital goods. The first example of this in action was Bitcoin, which was designed really to just be peer-to-peer money for the internet, cash for the internet. And what was amazing about Bitcoin is that it worked. DeFi builds off of that concept by basically reimagining peer-to-peer models for every single thing the financial industry does. So not just moving and storing value, but how we access credit, how we exchange financial assets, how we insure against risk, how we organize financial information, even how we stand up and operate businesses and companies through distributed or decentralized organizations. So the unstoppable force of DeFi, I think, is on a collision course, no pun intended, with this immovable object of the traditional financial world, and whatever cataclysm it creates is going to be quite dramatic.
Exactly, and I like that term, unstoppable force, and it sounds like there's a lot of promise there. Elea, can you kind of walk us through who stands to benefit the most from everything Alex just described?
The use case for DeFi.
In DeFi, yeah.
DeFi. Yeah, for example, if you don't know where to put your money and you go to DeFi, you put it on some, there are different deals in there, you know. One of the, like, some of them are, 100,000% that you're going to get over a year. So you just choose which one is the best and you put money there. That's it. And you grow your money, supposedly. But there is always a catch, right? So you have to always know who is running this platform. So as Alex says, this is a software. And somebody is running this software company. Somebody is creating this software company. And your funds basically is at mercy of these software creators. So if they put any bug into their software and the hacker hack it, then your money can be gone. So there is, a catch, right? But yes, in a normal circumstance, like if everything goes well, you can, of course, make a lot of money on your savings account, like as opposed to the savings account in a bank.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's a really good point. And Bryan, I want to bring you into the conversation. I know your specialty is in AI. How does AI in blockchain, or sorry, in DeFi really overlap here? And how does AI really help DeFi kind of solve the problems that we're kind of just describing here?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that intersection between AI and DeFi and crypto is fascinating because as we move into a market where we're collecting massive amounts of data on every individual, the question then is who owns that data? Who has agency over that data? And can we leverage that data to provide value for the end user outside of that exploitative models that have been used in the past in Web 2 that enable that individual to fully control their destiny? So the learn to earn model I think is really interesting, where as AI is used to hyper-personalize learning mechanisms to enable people to learn significantly faster, that data then can be used to enable that individual to earn $100, $200, $300 a month. So while they're learning the new skill sets that they need to be able to compete in this new marketplace where most workers need to be tech workers and they need to be highly skilled workers, that they can actually earn money rather than paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, for example, to go to a university. They can actually earn money while they're learning the skill sets necessary to be able to be productive members of society.
Okay, excellent. And I want to stay on you for a second and pull on that thread of the privacy question, because I think that's what a lot of people are kind of concerned about this in DeFi. How do we overcome this privacy challenge? Is AI and DeFi just the be-all, end-all solution to these privacy issues, or how do we navigate that?
Well, that's a fantastic question. Look, we need to have a conversation as a society around what does ethical artificial intelligence actually look like. I recently launched a nonprofit as well, along with Richard Branson on Necker Island, to actually ask this question. We brought together some of the top AI experts around the world to discuss and come to an agreement on what does ethical artificial intelligence look like? And ultimately, I think we need to apply pressure to bad actors. I think we need to have a conversation with investors, CEOs, and users, and come to an agreement that AI can be used either to massively improve the human condition and potentially catapult us forward in our evolutionary journey, or it can be used on the opposite end to create a dystopian hellscape. And we have a choice right now around which direction we go. And it's a very profound choice that's going to have ramifications for generations to come.
Yeah, and that sounds like a topic or an issue that impacts all countries, not just North America or anything like that. But of course, we've had a bit of a setback in recent weeks. The Bitcoin price fell below that critical $20,000 US level, and there's kind of a few people who are wondering what this means for the DeFi space, and if we can really get to that finish line of laying the foundation for the global economy. Alex, how do we overcome this route that we just saw lately, and does this put our DeFi dreams at risk?
Well, DeFi and crypto more generally are unique in that there's a liquid market for just about everything. And so we have this day by day, tick by tick way of sort of seeing what the industry looks like. And to be sure, the price is an important measure of general interest in the space, but it's only one of many. There are many different metrics that we should look at. Within DeFi, I've actually been encouraged by how DeFi's reacted during this market crash. If anything, it makes me more bullish than ever on its long-term potential. And the reason for that is that even though the price of certain crypto assets has declined, including the native token of a lot of DeFi protocols, just look at Uniswap or Compound or any of these things, the protocols themselves have held up very well. Their total value locked, which is a measure that's used in DeFi, sort of akin to like bank deposits. So instead of inside of money in a financial institution, it's money that is deployed inside of smart contracts, has declined mostly because the value of the tokens that are deposited has declined. But the actual functioning of these protocols has held up really well. And the reasons for the rout in prices are many-fold. There's lots of different things that you can point to. Some people within crypto, I think most of it's macro-driven, frankly, beyond what's happening in our industry. But if you look at the collapse of Terra Luna, for example, that was an example of an experiment in monetary theory that was hotly debated at the time, not because what was inside or what was backing that stablecoin was opaque and hidden from the world, it was exactly the opposite. Everyone actually knew in real time. And unfortunately, some people lost a lot of money, which is a tragedy no matter how you look at it. But if you compare that and contrast that to what's happening today with a lot of centralized crypto lenders, the issue there is not with blockchain or crypto or decentralization. It's actually a problem that we've had for centuries, which is the issue of credit risk when you have a specific institution. One company in Canada, Voyager, it was turned out, loaned half their loan book to one single entity, which is no longer able to repay. In the case of Celsius, which I think has been a well-run business, they're experiencing a good old-fashioned bank run, where people are trying to withdraw all the money at the same time, but since so much of that money is deployed in loans, they don't actually have the liquidity to satisfy those withdrawals. The issues that they're having would have been more easy to manage had their ledgers and their wallets and all that information actually been available for all to see. So you look at the lending protocols in DeFi or stablecoins like DAI. All of that information is transparent, and it's in a system, a blockchain, which is an immutable ledger, so it's trustworthy. And I think actually that if anything, the crises that we've experienced from centralized entities dealing with bankruptcies and issues largely because of their own opacity or lack of clarity speaks to the need even more for transparent transparent platforms that we have in DeFi. So to me, it's an advertisement for DeFi, and I think the future for DeFi looks very bright.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good point. And to your point, DeFi wasn't unique in getting some volatility here. We saw traditional stock markets, just everybody got hit in the last few weeks. Lena, I want to bring you in here, and how are you navigating this kind of volatile time, and how are your companies sort of reacting, and what are the conversations you're having with your peers in the DeFi space?
Yeah, very interesting question, and it goes back to my point that I made in the first question, that the robust companies with a good business model, with a great software, they survive and they live and they thrive as well, no matter what market is, because their model works. Like whatever, it's like lending, borrowing, it is stable, and it's run by the great team. And others who just relied on the hype and on the market, they will die off. And that's what we'll see. So we see at this time, it's very, very good to see who's actually good.
Yeah.
So, and if we had kind of this thing as a reputation power, right now we could assign the reputation power to all of the good ones. So then in the next bull run, we will see where to put our money and not to put money into the bad ones, right? So this is the kind of like the very good and big test for the DeFi space, and that's what we see in the companies. So they doing differently. One survived, one go down.
Yep. Yeah, and I think it's important that we see these shakeouts so we can identify what works, what doesn't work in the DeFi space. And do you think we really just get too obsessed with the hype around price? Alex brought up the point about pricing and how that's one metric to look at it, but should we be focusing more, especially when we look at the global economy and the benefits there? Do we get too caught up in the hype, and should we be focusing more on the innovations that this entire space brings?
Absolutely. Innovations is the key. And ideally, what we need to build in DeFi is this, kind of machine that works without any single party involvement, any person involvement, that any single person or the company can take it down or can screw up the smart contracts and it's actually drain all the funds. Like, for example, like Bitcoin is working. Bitcoin is a perfect system. If you don't support it, it runs on its own, right? So that's what we need to reach for the DeFi as well. Unfortunately, we're not at this stage yet. We're going there.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm hearing is bull and bear headlines kind of come and go, especially when we're looking at crypto assets like Bitcoin and all that. But there's definitely this broader conversation to be had about the underlying technology and how that gets us to this future of the global economy. So I kind of want to talk about what comes next. So picture yourself on the stage 5 years from now. Alex, what are some of the topics do you think we'll be discussing, and what innovations do you think are going to be in full force 5 years from now?
Well, one of the big criticisms of DeFi is that it's sort of a self-contained ecosystem. It doesn't actually export anything. So if you think about traditional financial services, you can go to a bank to get a loan, to build a bridge or buy a house or something like that. A lot of the financial services that are happening within DeFi are to do other things in crypto, right? So it could be that you're staking money to MakerDAO in order to get access to a stable coin to go invest it in some other DeFi protocol. But very little of it is being exported out of the DeFi world. But that's not a criticism of DeFi, it's just a reflection of the stage that it is at, right? And actually, I think that the next stage for DeFi is for it to become not just the financial services industry or the financial system for Web3 in the crypto economy, but for it to be exported to the rest of the world. And there are a lot of different use cases within DeFi where I see that happening. The biggest sort of components of the financial industry are payments and credit. So like I had a conversation with the CEO of one of the biggest banks in the world a few years ago. We were talking about this, and he says, we're well aware of crypto because fundamentally as a bank, we move money.
Yep.
And because we move money, we get to store money. And because we store money, we get to lend money, and that's our business. We make margin on lending money. So if you take the moving part away, all of a sudden the pillars of what supports our business start to become more tenuous. And so for me, I think if you look at the world of stable coins or these lending protocols, once they begin to be more widely used as a way for people to get loans, not to go buy other crypto assets, sort of like what a traditional financial person might use like a margin account for. You borrow against your shares to buy more shares. There's a little bit of that going on in crypto. Instead of that kind of lending, you're actually borrowing against assets to buy a house, or to buy a car, or to establish some sort of bootstrapped credit rating that allows you to get a loan. And so I think those kinds of tools are what you're going to see DeFi evolve into. And there are lots of measures that you can use. TVL is one, the one I mentioned earlier. Right now, there's maybe $100 billion. At its peak, it was around 250, 275. And these sound like big numbers, but they're actually tiny if you compare them to global bank deposits or assets under management of big companies like Fidelity and BlackRock have 5, 6, 7, 8 trillion dollars of AUM. So as much as we've seen the proof of concept, we're still a very long way from mass adoption. And it's seeing that DeFi exporting itself out of crypto to the rest of the financial world, it actually becoming useful for people beyond its few million diehard users, which is where we're at today, is going to be the big signal to me that it's reaching its potential.
Okay, absolutely. And I'm going to put this question to you too, Bryan, because I want to know what role AI has in bringing us to that future where everybody's kind of plugged into the DeFi space. And what role does AI have in getting us to that point 5 years from now? How do you see AI and DeFi working together at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, on the one hand, the data that we use to build all of our AI models needs to be protected in some capacity. And so protecting that data on Web3 ecosystem and in DeFi, I think, is absolutely critical. And then one of the things that's really interesting, I was just speaking with a guy that's using quantum computers to build out the next generation of algorithmic trading. So that goes hand in hand with AI and protecting that data in a decentralized fashion. But then everything we do in 5 years is going to be hyper-personalized using artificial intelligence. I mean, we've already seen it in our social lives, in the way that we shop. Amazon knows what you're going to buy before you're going to buy it. And so every AI is going to integrate into every different industry, especially decentralized finance.
Okay, sounds good. And Alina, at the risk of this sounding like a job interview, where do you see DeFi in 5 years?
Oh, in 5 years. Oh, yeah, I'm very much hoping to what Alex was saying, that DeFi will go beyond the crypto into other industries. And this money that actually can be, produced and these models is going to be used elsewhere for the social good.
Absolutely. And how do you see us bringing every country into some on the same page there? I know regulation's kind of the issue here.
That's easy because right now the DeFi is doing it already in all countries. So it is happening already. So the globality is not a question. It's just the question of the outside world trusting DeFi enough to partner.
Exactly, yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point. The tech is there, the will is there. It's about achieving this regulatory consensus. getting everybody on the same page and just how just recognizing the potential in the DeFi space can bring us forward.
Yeah.
So
we're here at this conference because of that, because we want to bind these two worlds together.
Exactly. Well, I could talk about this all day. And there's so many interesting things happening at a rapid fire rate, but we're kind of tight on time. So I wanted to thank the panelists, Alex, Alina, Bryan. I wanted to thank Collision for inviting me here, and I want to thank all the panelists for, all the audience for coming here today. So really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.